Good morning, everyone. We've talked about Lamentations. Pastor Adino is not feeling too well, so let's look at this book, Lamentations. If we look at the book of Lamentations, we know he's a very filled with worry prophet. Jonah is very happy, but Prophet Jeremiah is a very blue prophet, but God also used him, and this sadness, even today, if you go into the cry wall, you will look at them praying with the Bible. In the crying wall is the Lamentations. Within that, what is the sadness? We know that the Holy Temple first and second, it was destroyed on the same day. So today, in the cry wall, when you look at the destroyed Jerusalem, we will use Lamentations. We will study Lamentations. There are 5 chapters in Lamentations, and 4 chapters are poems. There are 22 characters in Hebrew, and it comes consequentially. And the first chapter has 22 verses. The second chapter also has 22 verses. So the first, if it's English, the first verse is A, the second verse is B, and the third chapter is 66. The fourth chapter is also 22. The fifth chapter, only verse 22, it's not in the form of a poem. That is how it is arranged. Why they used in this poem they used the alphabet ABCD consecutively. Some people say because it's too sad, it's hard to start writing. Just use the alphabet as the first word of the verse, and to fill it in later so that they can express the sadness afterwards. Let's look at chapter 1. It uses use Jerusalem and so Judah was destroyed by Babylon. Let's have a look, because it was quite rushed. Let's read it together. How lonely sits the city that was full of people. How like a widow's is she. She was great among the nations. The princess among the provinces has become a slave. We can see that in verse Jeremiah looks at before, filled with people's city. Now it's lonely. It used to be great among nations. Now it's widow. It used to be princess. Now is a slave. At the beginning, Jeremiah followed these alphabets and talk about the situation of the country. She weeps bitterly in the night. Her tears are on her cheeks. Among all her lovers, she has none to comfort her. All her friends have dealt treacherously with her. They have become her enemies, which repeats a point that no one comforted her. Why the people left her? Because Judah, at that time, if we look at Israel's history, Judah did not ask for God, did not call for God, but Judah did not respond to Israel's cry. So it focuses on those whom Jerusalem, Israel go after, lean to, but all those, none of them comfort her among all her lovers. And all her friends have dealt treacherously with her. They have become her enemies. And this is the situation. Those whom she has placed her trust in have betrayed them. Judah has gone into captivity under afflictions and hard servitude. We know that Jeremiah has tried to convince them to, and the country has destroyed. When Jeremiah tried to convince Israel, she dwells among the nations, she finds no rest. All her persecutors overtake her in dire straits. And the roads to Zion mourn, because no one comes to the set feast. All her gates are desolate. Her priests sigh, her virgins are afflicted, and she is in bitterness. Her adversaries have become the master. Her enemies prosper, for the Lord has afflicted her because of the multitude of her transgressions. Her child have gone into captivity before the enemy. In verse 5, Jeremiah said the whole key. Why did they come to this? Because the Lord has afflicted her because of the multitudes of her transgressions. Maybe in Chinese just a few words, but if you look at Israel's history, we know that there are a lot of transgressions. God has given them a lot of chances, but at one point, God is angry, but he tried to suppress his anger. God is not angry forever. And God, in his anger, God provides a lot of love. He's angry, and it continues to escalate. He asks prophets to try to convince you to turn back, but at a point, at the apex, it explodes. But we don't know, but we didn't get the message. We'll try to turn back. But Judah did not look at God, and at the apex, at the top, it's already exploded and cannot do anything else when it exploded. And from the daughter, and God has afflicted her because of the multitudes of her transgressions. This is the key. Her princes have become like deer that find no pasture, that flee without strength before the pursuer. Who's the princes? You know, these are the last king. But we know that in front of enemy, killed his sons in front of him and poked his eyes out and led him in captive to Babylon. So Jeremiah used this poem in the days of her affliction and roaming Jerusalem, remember all her pleasant things that she had in days of old when her people fell into the hands of enemy with no one to help her. The adversary saw her and mocked at her downfall. Jerusalem has sinned gravely. Why has sinned gravely, therefore she has become vile, and who honored her despise her, because they have seen her nakedness. Yes, she sighs and turns away. Her uncleanliness is in her skirts. She did not consider her destiny, therefore her collapse was awesome. She had no comforter. Oh Lord, she had no comforter. We can see because she is unclean, she did not consider her destiny, and she has taken this step. O Lord, behold my affliction, for the enemy is exalted. The adversary has spread his hand over all her pleasant things, for she has seen the nations enter her sanctuary, those whom you commanded not to enter your assembly. We can see that for Jeremiah, it's such a sad thing, because the enemy came to destroy God's temple, and this temple has said no Gentiles can go into the holies of holies. But when the holy city is destroyed, Gentiles went into the temple, the holies. Jeremiah felt such pain. All her people sigh, they seek bread, they have given their valuables for food to restore life. See, O Lord, and consider, for I am scorned. We can see that Jerusalem, especially the temple, the looting, the people's situation, they needed bread, they needed help. Why? Because they have sinned greatly. They did not think, they did not reflect on themselves. You know what happened? If you look commonly, we just do what we want to do, not to turn back and reflect. But is there a day that things will come back and bite you, just like this poem? Because it has sinned greatly. When it comes to the top, the apex, it will explode. And that's why Judah has, is it nothing to you, all you who pass by? Behold and see if there is any sorrow like my sorrow, which has been brought on me, which the Lord has afflicted in the days of his fierce anger. From those who pass by when they are held captive, some stayed in Jerusalem, but some who just passed by. And the prophet said, didn't you see it? Don't you feel anything? Don't you mind? So when we go back, when we look at Lamentations, this name in Greek, in Hebrew, in the Greek translation, it's a cry. It means cry. In Greek, in Hebrew, Lamentations mean why? Why would it be? How can this be? On this day, how can this be? Why did you not respond? Why is the country gone down to this? Verse 13, from above he sent fire into my bones, and it overpowered them. He has spread a net for my feet and turned me back. He has made me desolate and faint all the day. I also means the city crying, the yoke of my transgression was bound. Seeing God's judgment, he felt pain. They were woven together by his hands and thrust upon my neck. He made my strength fail. The Lord delivered me into the hands of those whom I am not able to withstand. The Lord has trampled underfoot all my mighty men in my midst. He has called an assembly against me to crush my young men. The Lord trampled as in the wine's press the virgin daughter of Judah. So you look at wine press. It also talks about wine press. It's about judgment. So the wine press at this time, it's trampling on the grapes, and the juice of the grape comes out, and the wine press, and it's about trampling on wine press. It's like trampling wine press. It's like during war that the blood is spilling. It also means that judgment, when God is angry and letting Judah to the enemy, so that at war, so that they fail in the war, and as a result it's destroyed. And they use the winepress to talk about, for these things I weep, my eye overflows water, because the Comforter who should restore my life is far from me. My children are desolate because the enemy prevailed. Nobody comfort him. He tried to lean to someone else, but nobody helped. Zion spreads out her hands, but no one comforts her. The Lord has commanded concerning Jacob that those around him become his adversaries. Jerusalem has become an unclean thing among them. So again, it talks about when it comes from Jehovah, because there's too much sin, and it continues, and nobody listen. And at this point, this situation happened. What they rely is not God. What they rely on is those who seem to be powerful in front of them. But when bad things happen, nobody helped them. Nobody comfort them. When Zion spreads out her hands, no one comforts her, because everything she brought this upon her own. In Jeremiah's view, it's heartbreaking. And when all this judgment, in God's judgment, Jeremiah said, verse 18, the Lord is righteous, for I rebelled against his commandment. Hear now, all peoples, and behold my sorrow. My virgins and my young men have gone into captivity. Today, is this what's happening to us? Our work, our relationship, our worship, are we facing setbacks? Something exposed? Is it time for us to face the music? It's other people's problem. But God, through this chapter, we understand that God is fair and righteous, because we've took away. Behold my sorrow, hear now all people, behold my sorrow, my virgins and my young men have gone into captivity. I called for my lovers, but they deceived me. My priests and my elders breathed their last in the city, while they sought food to restore their life. And though her lovers did not deceive me, and when they seek food, there's nothing anymore. And this is the situation then. At this time, what can they do? If it were you, what would you do? In this very desolate time, what would you do? Will you be angry at God? Why, God, have you done this to me? We can know that in verse 18, the prophet said, the Lord is righteous. and the relationship with God will not be will not stop us from God. Oh, let's keep a distance from God. No. He is willing to seek God. Verse 20, see, O God, that I am in distress. My soul is troubled. So in this difficult situation, the way out is to go back to God. And Jeremiah said, she asked God to see, my soul is in trouble. My heart is overturned with me, for I am very rebellious. Outward the sword bereaves. At home it is like death. To repent to God, please look, it's my problem. They have heard that I sigh, but no one comforts me. All my enemies heard. Nobody came to comfort him. Nobody comforts him. What do we do when nobody comforts him? In Taiwan, we said they're a strawberry generation. Very easy to destroy, very easy to break. Nobody is helping me. I'll just die. I'll give up. Self-pity. Absorbed in self-pity. But we can see the prophet at this time, when nobody is comforting, the prophet tells God's situation. In the sorrow, use the poem to express the sorrow to God. When nobody comforts, it uses this sorrow to turn it into conversations with God. And when they are glad that you have done it. Bring on the day you have announced, that they may become like me. And the enemy is happy to see that we're in distress, but one day they will be like me. Let their wickedness come before you, and do to them as you have done to me. For all my transgressions, for my sighs are many, and my heart is faint. So it uses this alphabet poem from verse 1 to verse 20 to list out the sorrows. And Judah wanted to turn to Egypt, and Jeremiah talks to God about all these and all the wickedness of all these other countries. He told God, and the same will, and talk about the sorrow to God. And from the deepest place of the heart to tell God this sorrow. It's not easy for Prophet Jeremiah. He's always crying. And some people say, oh, he cries so easily, he's so weak. But man's crying means weakness. It's from Greek poem, Greek thoughts. In Hebrew tradition, it's okay for men to cry. God gave man the ability to cry. In the New Testament, Jesus also cried. In Hebrew culture, in God's culture, it is okay for men to cry. And in a way, we know that in some countries, like the US and France, if the senior management cry, people think that you're weak when you cry. In Israel, if the Prime Minister of Israel cry when people die, when soldiers die, the Prime Minister of Israel cried, people actually support him. You can see that Jeremiah in Greek culture, why are you crying? You are a man. You should be strong. But in this place, God accepts it, knowing that Jeremiah's tears is a prayer to God. This is Jeremiah's life. He sees the country being destroyed. God, please help us to look at Judah's destruction, that in sin we need to turn back to God and not wait until the sin accumulate to a place that it will explode. And secondly, when we reach the stage of explosion, if we don't know how to repent, we know that God is righteous. We ask God to look, and we talk to God and tell God and admit that it is us who did not follow God, and we believe that God will take care of us. This is the first chapter of this poem, and that Jeremiah will go through the sorrow with his own country. Today, a lot of the times, God teaches us that when people are in trouble, you want to get out of it. But Jeremiah is not that kind of person. He is a great example. He goes through the sorrow with his own country. He did not say, haven't I told you, you're still like this. It serves you well, but he didn't do that. He go through the sorrow with the country and tells God about the situation. And today, let's God help us so that we are able to go through the sorrow with those who are experiencing. We thank God and ask God that God will teach us.